So, hello everyone. Welcome to our meditation session. And the one of the very important principles in Buddhist practice in Buddhism, one of the principles that when we live by it or when we observe it in the world can be a source of tremendous inspiration and happiness. It's a profound principle for human life. It's a profound aspect of love itself. And that is the dedication to non-harming. And non-harming is maybe not often associated with love, because sometimes love is expected to be much more active, actively having a positive regard, actively having feelings of goodwill and compassion and appreciation and all kinds of things that come with love. But in fact, a profound way of loving others and loving oneself is to really see the value of non-harming. Because in non-harming, let's just keep it for meditation for now. If we are dedicated to not harming with our thoughts, not harming with our actions, with our attitudes and our speech, that though the harm is not interfering with our natural capacity to mature, to grow, to evolve spiritually, dharmically, humanly. Human beings are built to change over time. And certainly if we get older, we recognize those change. But part of the change that's built into us is that of maturation, a growth in wisdom, a growth in freedom, a growth in love. And this phenomenal growth that's possible is a natural thing that has one of the most important qualities is to get out of the way for it, to not interfere with it. And a life dedicated to non-harming is a life dedicated to not putting up the obstacles to this natural growth, natural evolution that's possible within us. So a heightened sensitivity to how our thoughts undermine us, harm us by negative thinking, critical thinking, and sometimes those thoughts come with authority, like this is true. But no thought that undermines us, no thought which doesn't look upon us with kindness, basic kindness. No thought that somehow hurts in some deep way. It's possible to recognize that we have behavior and thoughts and feelings which are not so healthy, but that doesn't have to give birth to hurtful, harmful thoughts. Seeing our shortcomings clearly without adding harm moves us towards health. So to not harm and then make space for the practice to evolve. So, assuming a meditation posture that maybe allows you to have some nice balance between being alert and being calm. And the alertness is partly to be alert to the thoughts, the attitudes, the impulses which undermine us, deplete us, shut us down or tighten us up, that bring tension and reactivity. And the calm is partly so we can better appreciate the alternative. The calmer the mind, the hearts are, the less it wants to harm. So to take a few long, slow, deep breaths and to relax the body. To take some long, slow, deep breaths and relax deep inside. And then letting the breathing return to normal. And as you exhale, see if you can have a wave, a calming wave through your body. Exhale and settle in the body, calm in the body. On the exhale, allow there be a calming of the mind, a quieting of the thinking mind. And then to settle down into the breathing. And one way to approach a thoroughgoing attitude to not harming is to assume that in meditation you can do no wrong. Nothing is wrong with you. However, the practice is to keep waking up, to keep being mindful of what is, to clearly see and know what's happening. where that clarity of being awake, being mindful, is leaving everything alone, not being involved, not picking up, not staying involved with thoughts, getting out of the way. It's enough just to be clearly aware of what's happening here and now. Using breathing as the stabilizing force in the present moment, the calming, focusing force. Supporting us in not being entangled or involved with anything that goes on. Just to see, just to know, just to feel how it is. Dedicated to non-harming. Is there any way that your thoughts or your attitudes right now are harmful, undermining? Don't think that that's wrong or a mistake, or criticize yourself for it. That's more harm. Rather, know it clearly. Recognize it for what it is, and let it be. Don't grant it more attention. Don't feed it with more involvement. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, to live a life of non-harming is to live with a certain kind of reassurance, certain kind of inner safety, and a heightened capacity to gaze upon everyone with an open heart, with kindness and goodwill, knowing that we're dedicated to not harming them. There's nothing that in our hearts that is closed or regretful or dangerous for others. And even the intention to live without harm is a beautiful intention. It's the beginning of a new direction. May it be that on this day, as we come out of meditation, that we have a heightened interest intention to not cause harm, and that dedication is an expression of goodwill, of kindness, of love. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings be free. Thank you. So hello and welcome to the fourth talk on love when it's hard, to love in times of challenges. And today I'll introduce this topic of non-harming, which is I think one of the most marvelous and inspiring, at least for me, qualities a human being can have. And it's central to the whole Buddhist enterprise. And to really appreciate it, that's a kind of a unifying principle or core principle of the Dharma. Puts everything else into a kind of into a very important context, or very important kind of fits everything else together. And one of the kind of understandings of what a religion is the religion provides values, principles, orientations for how to live one's whole life, kind of ultimate teachings, ultimate purposes, ultimate understandings that apply to all of one's life. And so this is one of those that makes Buddhism a religion, that it's a religion of non-harming, and not to harm. Um, and the core, one of the core teachings of the Four Noble Truths is an expression of that. It's a formulation of that, where the word for harm is presented as by the word dukkha, or suffering. And so I've met people who, their very being, their very disposition and personality, way of being in the world, was clear that they were a harmless person, that they were dedicated to not harming. Sometimes such people are dedicated to being honest. And I've met people who are, it seems like they're incapable of lying, and incapable of harming others. And this dedication to not harm, not harm. When I was about 20 or 21, I made a mistake and someone wanted to challenge me to a fist fight. And it all happened very, very suddenly. And so there was no premeditated thought on my part. But what I immediately did was I dropped to one knee and spread out my hands wide, and as if, now I'm vulnerable and I'm not defending myself, and I said, I can't fight. And and so rather than being, defensively beaten up on, the person spun around and marched off in disgust. But this idea of not being able to fight, not being able to harm anyone, whether that should be practiced all the time in the way that I just described for myself, that's a personal question, and I'm not for me to say in all the circumstances of life what we would do. But to have in the forefront of our hearts and minds this care to not want to harm, and to really make that the first consideration, the first kind of way of thinking about a situation. Like, let's not harm here. And I'm teaching about this for this week about love, because it's a form of love to not harm. And rather than always expect love to have a very high bar of what love is, that it means having, just filled with warmth and appreciation and joy and kind of a radiance of positive regard for anyone and everyone and everywhere, that love can also not be so dramatic. It doesn't have to be that we always have a warm heart, an open heart, a generous kind of sense of kind of gushing joy and appreciation and compassion for others. Sometimes love is quieter, is more basic, and one of the forms of love is not harming. We love others through not harming them. We love others by not setting up obstacles for their growth and their evolution and their development of their life. We love others by giving them room to be who they are. We give love to others by giving them safety. So many people in this world are not safe, don't feel safe, have grown up not feeling safe, and don't automatically feel that other people they encounter are safe for them. But to really kind of get a sense that someone is harmless, dedicated to being harmless, that they're not going to harm, is a gift that we give to other people. And it's a gift of love, of care, love being a respect for others. Maybe we don't have gushing warmth for someone, but we have an appreciation for their autonomy, their possibility, their humanity, that we don't want to mess with it. A dedication to non-harming is also directed towards oneself, that one doesn't want to harm oneself in any way. And this is also a form of love. And again, same thing as before, that we measure sometimes the idea of love or metta towards oneself, compassion for oneself, with some idea that it's maybe more than it has to be. It has to be some little bit, warmth and gushing and delight and kind of lots of smiles but sometimes even towards ourselves, it's profound. It's a profound form of love that's quieter, that's not a big gushing kind of feeling of warmth, but rather just simply caring enough for oneself that one doesn't want to cause harm to oneself. As we practice mindfulness, a very important thing begins happening. That mindfulness brings a heightened sensitivity to the impact of our behavior, the impact of our thoughts, our attitudes, our impulses we have. And what we start discovering is that when we intentionally want to harm someone else, get revenge, or somehow cynically poke them in some way, or whatever it might be, we are simultaneously harming ourselves. In fact, in the teachings of the Buddha, he actually says that when we intentionally harm others, we actually harm ourselves much, much more than we harm the other. And kind of mythically, they talk about rebirth. That even if you do something like kill someone else, that's pretty bad for that person who died. And I don't want to diminish the horror of that. But for the person who kills, they're going to get reborn endless times, many, many, many times, where they're going to be killed violently and be tortured and in these kind of burning hells. So that's kind of the mythic teachings of Buddhism, but it kind of points to this idea how much we harm ourselves more than we harm others if we want to intentionally harm them. And so we can feel that when we have the heightened, deepened sensitivity of mindfulness. And it's a game changer to feel that and see that, how much we harm ourselves. And so that we also then see how we harm ourselves by our negative attitudes towards ourselves. And to not want to harm ourselves anymore. Even if the negative attitudes have some truth to them, they're not needed. We don't need to send arrows into our own hearts. We don't need to set up obstacles that interfere with the natural growth into goodness, into honesty, into non-harming that exists in every heart, in your heart, in our hearts. And so not to add restrictions on ourselves, not to add things that undermine us or discourage us or depress us. One of the leading causes for depression, they say, is negative self-talk. And that negative self-talk can come with such authority. It can seem like it's true and it has to happen. But, in that it's repetitive over and over and over again. It's not useful. So to recognize it as a kind of self-harm might begin to put a crack into this strong impulse we have to have negative self-talk. To realize it's not necessary. There's another way. There's a way of non-harming. And it's not easy to make a shift, but it isn't so much that we have to actively do something else, like love other people. It's mostly an avoidance. And even if all it takes is to bite your tongue to avoid saying the harmful thing, this is beneficial. Sometimes we have to really restrain ourselves physically so that we don't punch someone out. And I had the occasion to do that, to avoid punching someone out. in a meditation hall once when I was in Asia, where we were all monks practicing together, but this monk who was sitting next to me must have hated me and a kind of prejudice, and was constantly poking me and saying kind of not nice things to me, and during meditation in a Buddhist monastery. And so I just sat there and I never replied in meditation. But there was one day I remember I just felt like I just want to turn around and punch the guy in the face. And but I didn't. And I kept my hands to myself, and that took a fair amount of restraint. So sometimes it works that way, that we have to just restrain, and that's the beginning of an alternative. And but also to begin to learn how not to participate with the thoughts and impulses without having to do a lot of work, to not pick it up, to not give into it, maybe even not believe in it. All these efforts, all this approach to trying to live with non-harming is a significant way of loving. So the question, where's the love? How can I love in this when there's a challenging situation? Here's an easy answer, but not always easy to implement. The love is found in the dedication to non-harming. And what I'd like to propose is that this is such an important and central value that it's more important to adhere to that than somehow solve the challenges we're in. And I'll end with a story that Dalai Lama tells of some point in India, he met with a monk who had been in a Chinese prison camp for 20, 25 years before being released, and then he was able to come to India. And so the Buddha met with him, and the Dalai Lama, then asked the monk, were you ever in danger in the prison camp? Of violence, of starving, or something. And the monk's answer surprised the Dalai Lama. The monk said, yes, I was in danger. I was in danger of losing my compassion for the prison guards. The greatest wealth, the greatest health, the greatest thing that the monk had maybe was his compassion, his kind regard, his not wanting to harm anyone. And that's what he identified as being the most precious, most important part of who he is. And so more than anything else, perhaps non-harming represents our greatest wealth, our greatest beauty, our greatest home, our greatest kind of most wonderful place that life can radiate from. And no matter what the challenge that we're in, for a Buddhist, the love that doesn't want to harm should always be close by. May we love the world through a dedication to non-harming. So thank you very much, and look forward to being back here tomorrow.